Hey everybody, welcome to a special year-end wrap-up edition of the Ronline Report. I'm joined by Giles Tiger Thomas over in the UK. The biggest story of 2018, as far as I'm concerned, is the rise of MD globally, thanks to this man sharing the camera with me. Giles started Muscle News Weekly this week with Rosie as his co-host, and just a few weeks ago, our podcast, Global Muscle Radio, began. And talk about some guests. His first four guests were Phil Heath, Flex Lewis, who's number three? Zach King Khan, and coming up Monday morning at 9, Tony Freeman. So bam, 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 bam. Talk about high-profile guests. You can catch that on the Muscular Development YouTube page, and if you want to download it and listen to the audio podcast, like a lot of people do these days, go to SoundCloud for MD Global Muscle Radio. And Giles, what a fantastic job you're doing with that podcast. You and Chris Clark, Pumped Media, and our host, AJ, all the way from Oslo, Norway, flies over to do these every other week. Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had to start off. That's the big story of 2018 as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's kind of happened, all happened so quick, because by the time you, me, and Steve all decided this, I kind of had this, it's weird because you never get the best case scenario. It never works out exactly how you want it to. So you start high and then you end up working your way down. Yeah. And I had this idea in my head. It's like, right, I want it in a podcast studio. I want AJ as my co-host. I knew the guests I wanted. So within a few days, I think within 2 days of thinking about this, yeah, it was all happening. And it just, I mean, how often does that happen in life when something works out perfectly?
If you had laid out all those, wish list terms to me, I would have been like, he'd be lucky if he gets half of those things going by, But it's one of those things where your hard work, your contacts, it didn't happen by accident. You've been working hard in the industry for over 20 years, and you've made a lot of friendships and everything. That's how you get these guests, these high profile guests, and people like Chris Clark to help you out. Someone that you knew before, AJ from the forums. I mean, it was good karma coming back at you to put this thing together. I want everyone to I hope no one's missing these shows because they're phenomenal. They're fantastic. I make little highlight videos of them for the people with no attention span, but that's not to say the whole thing. I could sit there and listen to the whole thing. The banter between you and AJ, I had a year ago we didn't think AJ was even a real person.
Yeah. Well, isn't that certainly one of the highlights of 2018? I mean, funny you say about Muscle News Weekly. I started that. The first episode was the day that we left for Rosie to do her last pro show. So literally we filmed that in the morning. I uploaded it at the hotel when we got to London. Yeah. And then obviously that was our first episode. It was like 30, 40 minutes long. Wow. And when I was driving down there, because I'd saved AJ's number, it came up on my my car phone. It said AJ the Legend. And I was like, Rosie, I don't believe it. I said, this is the guy. I said, let's see what he sounds like, because we had some idea it was like some 14-year-old ginger kid in his mum's basement in Canada. I don't know why we had that in our heads.
We've been catfished before. That's why.
Yeah. So we just thought that was, and he rang me because I'm in London. I was just like, nah. I said, he ain't coming. And then when we got to the hotel, and I just and I don't even know how you got the room number, but I heard a knock at the door, and I turned to Rosie and I went, I know who that is. And I opened the door and there was just this giant stood in the doorway with loads of presents for Rosie and like Norwegian brown cheese and silly hats and everything. And it was just it was so funny.
Got it all on camera, and I mean he met like Bob Chick and all these people, so immediately was established this was not a hoax. He actually is this 6'5", probably goes about 350. Just mountain of a man, and he's so he loves bodybuilding. He's so passionate, so enthusiastic. It's infectious.
Yeah, it's good that I've got somebody over this side of the world that's kind of like Rosie said in Muscle News Weekly. She said it's good that you've met someone that's kind of met with your own energy and love for the sport, that passion. And it's great because I mean I obviously have Rosie supporting me with Muscle News Weekly and everything else that we're doing over here, and she helps me with the show coverage. But it's nice to have somebody else to add to the team that I can rely on and is enthusiastic and really, because every day he rings me with new ideas, and it's good because it kind of gets me extra fired up, So yes, I'm really thrilled that we've got him as my co-host. And Global Muscle Radio. I'm absolutely thrilled how that's going. I'm just setting out the guests for 5 and 6 now.
Okay.
There's one of them who's potentially. I'm just trying to pin him down at the moment. He's proven to be a bit tricky, but I'm going to get him. Don't worry.
Okay. But yeah, it truly is global. I mean, you're over there in the UK. He's Oslo, Norway, but he's Jamaican of all things. And then I'm over here in what used to be America. Before the apocalypse. But, just a little joke there. So I guess let's talk about 2018 stories in the order of importance of how big they were. So the biggest news is we were sitting there at the Orleans Arena. I certainly did not think Phil Heath was not going to win again. I would have bet you crazy amounts of money he was a shoo-in. 8th title for the Olympia. This was just like, all right, let's get 8 out of the way. Let's let Phil just get this out of the way where he ties Ronnie and Lee. Next year is going to be the big year because that's when he's going to go for the all-time record of 9. That's totally what I thought was going to happen and did not happen. You were over here, I was over here, and the crowd just went kaboom when Bob Chick said, "You're new Mr. Olympia." Because we've both been to many Mr. Olympias where they should have said new Mr. Olympia, but they did not. It was the same guy kept winning even though he had one bicep torn or got out to here or whatever. I mean, was that like the most exciting Mr. Olympia you've ever been to, you think?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I've been to I've been to like 5, 6 Olympias.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing was because no one, and I don't care who, no one saw Sean coming.
Right.
No one saw. I think there was one guy in there, he runs a British podcast, and he had Sean in the top 5. But like everybody else just did not. I mean, we're not even talking top 3. We're not even talking top 5. No one had him.
Right.
I think 1 or 2 people had him in maybe the top 6 at a push. But who could have imagined that Sean Roden? I mean, he was. I mean, I don't think he still hasn't forgiven me for placing him because I had him 8th place. Do you remember at the Olympia, we were like deciding, we were taking it in turn with who we were interviewing, and you were talking to Sean, and I was stood there, and Sean looked at me and he points.
This effing guy.
No, I'm not sure about doing an interview with Giles. He says he had me 8th place last year, and I just walked off, and then you interviewed him.
Right.
But no, I did not see that coming, and I to be honest, I've said it a few times over the years. There was 2 bodybuilders I felt that had that potential knockout punch to win the Olympia, and that was Cedric McMillan, and the other one was Sean Roden. And it's like I was kind of losing faith in Sean Roden a little bit. I thought, well, he's 43. It's like last year he didn't look that great, but then we found out he'd broken his jaw and he'd had injuries. So I mean, we all it wasn't a surprise maybe in years previous to say that he was someone that had the potential, but it just looked like he was starting to slip, even though he placed 2nd. In the 2016, wasn't it? He placed 2nd, and he placed 3rd in 2015, 3rd in 2012. But I just didn't see it coming. But he turned up. He looked phenomenal. He looked absolutely incredible.
It proved that it actually is a physique it's not a body part competition, because I think even in the preview I did an MD for the Olympia, I didn't say it in exactly these words, but I was basically, if you read between the lines, I said, Phil's triceps are like among the best ever. His back is incredible. Sean Roden does not have great triceps. His back is not great. So therefore, in my mind, there's no way he was ever beating Phil Heath, ever. So sorry, Sean. My bad. I apologize. I've been wrong so many times. It's okay.
I like to be proved wrong, though. It's good. It's exciting because it's like if most years we've always been able to predict the top 6, the top 10, and pretty much we're usually pretty bang on. You'll get one guy that'll move up and one guy that'll surprise, but pretty much for the last few years, especially the open class, it's been very, very predictable. So for someone like Sean to literally come from the back of the pack, he almost did what Ronnie did in 1998. Like I know Ronnie went from 9th to 1st in 97 to 98, but I don't think Sean deserved 5th the year before. Like I said, I had him 8th place, so he was not on my radar for even, certainly not top 3, and I didn't even have him top 6. So for him to like really but you know what you're saying about body parts, it's like, I've speak to Phil Heath, obviously he's been on my podcast, and I keep hearing this thing saying, they keep calling this year's Olympia an ab contest, and it's like, it's not though, because if something spoils the picture, it spoils the picture. You know, if you like when Sean Roden hit that ab and thigh, the side chest, it was just like it had us gasping, because the bit, like you said, it's a physique contest, and sometimes when you see these bodybuilders, yeah, they'll have like great body parts, like Ramy will have, you know, big this, small, big that, you know, but it's the overall flow, it's the physique. It's Sean Roden is he's a very aesthetic, artistic looking physique, you know, and it's just, I'm glad, and I don't think this is a return to aesthetics. I just think it was the fact that he was absolutely bang on the day. I mean, on the Friday, I don't think he looked, like Phil looked better on the Saturday, but he still didn't close the gap enough to beat Sean. I mean, Sean just on the Friday, I said remember we said in the wrap-up, and I said he's not going to he'll be lucky if he can even hold that, but that's all he needs to do, because he looks so good at the prejudging.
Yeah, because I think you said that's as good as anybody can peak. What we saw from him that Friday night, you don't beat that condition. That's it. It
was incredible. But you know what? I got some shit for, because I said when he first walked out on the Friday, there was a teeny bit of distension.
Uh-oh.
Noticed that I think I was the only one. I think it was me and a couple other people that noticed it. But when he walked out, there was a tiny bit of distension. But if you look at him, Sean Roden, at the 2017 Olympia, on the Friday he had a lot of distension. His whole stomach was distended. Yeah. But on the Saturday it was perfectly flat. Right. So that tells me that it's not a gut issue. It's a fact he's obviously probably just carved up too late and had too much food or water. Yeah. I've seen that many times. I remember seeing Flex Lewis the night before in his hotel room in the night before the 2011 Arnold Europe in Madrid, and Neil Hill said, "Come and have a look at Flex. Come and look at Flex." And Flex was, I've told you the story before, but Flex was lying on the bed, and because he was his first time in the second time in the open class, and Neil had forced so much food into him, his stomach was literally like that. And he was sweating, and it was like a turtle shell. Anyway, so Neil sort of drags him up, and he says, "Come on, hit some poses for Giles. Tell him what you're looking at." And I tell you what, Flex looked really, really uncomfortable. But then the next day, walks on stage, and his stomach's perfectly flat, because he was having to get so much food and fluid or whatever into him. Food. He was obviously trying to fill him out as much as possible. So it was obviously something that Sean had rectified from the year before, and thank God, because look what happened.
Yeah, and the other big rise at that Olympia was Rolly Winkler, who he'd been 6th place twice before, I believe, but couldn't crack top 5. And, you know, I've always liked Rolly's physique a lot, but I never had him in the running for the very top spots. I always thought 5th, 6th, 7th place guy, that's where probably Rolly's always going to be. Again, proved wrong. Rolly this year, you know, this was he was a year-long story, because when we saw him at the Arnold, Ohio, didn't have a lot of detail. It was huge, full, just too full. Not a lot of detail. And then it was 2 weeks later, he goes and wins the Australia with, I think he dropped 15 pounds or something in that time. His waist came in, details came out. He was able to beat both Bonac and Dexter, who had, you know, obviously Bonac had won, 2 guys who had beat him. And then he beat both of those guys again at the Olympia. He took 3rd place. And became the people's champion, which, you know, that's just people voting. But the judges saw fit to give him 3rd place, where they'd never even had him in the top 5 before. So I think he's a potential. I would never have said Rolly Winkler could win the Mr. Olympia. I would never have thought that. But now I'm thinking, yeah, maybe he could.
Remember how he looked on the Saturday? Think of Rolly. It's like, I hope, like with Sean with his peaking, I hope. What happens with Rolly, they always seem to bring him in for the Arnold and the Olympia. They always seem to bring him in too heavy, too big. And then it's the post-Arnold, post-Olympia shows where they get it right. They drop weight off him. When he won Prague after the Olympia last year, looked incredible. Arnold Australia dropped 15, 20, and it all comes off his waist, because it's like with Phil. Like if that waist isn't small and flat, it spoils the picture. And like Rolly on the Saturday, I think there's a very good argument for Rolly getting 2nd at the Olympia on the Saturday, because it's all of that midsection. It makes everything transform unbelievably. Now, remember if you were on these previews all year, I've been saying that I really, really hope that Rowley pulled ahead of Ramy, because I believe in my eyes, he's a much better physique. Yeah. I prefer his physique. I think he's a freakier physique, and that happened. So for that, I was very, very happy for Rowley, and I think potentially he could win the Olympia next year. I do believe that. The way he never stops working, he never stops improving, and I think if they really get him right, and they get him right and crisp for that prejudge, and they keep that stomach nice and flat, and they don't bring him in at like 278, 280, I think especially with Phil not being there next year, I think it could be Roden versus Rowley. I really do, and I really think if Roden doesn't bring his A game, then I could conceivably definitely see Rowley winning.
So another story, we don't like to talk about people that are going down the ladder, but usually it's a temporary thing. People go up, people go down. They change coaches, change countries, whatever. And that's Big Ramy comes in, 315 pounds on stage, too big. It's bodybuilding's supposed to be about size and everything, but there is a point where people get too big, and it's the shape and the detail gets lost. And Ramy was the guy everyone was talking about as far as he was going to possibly push Phil Heath for the win this year. Didn't happen. He wasn't even in the top 5. He was sixth place. And shortly after that, he left Kuwait, and he was the Camel Crew's biggest success story. And I'm not going to blame them. Who knows why he wasn't as detailed as he should have been, this and that. But now he's working with Neil Hill, so there's a chance he could look very, very different the next time we see him, which, from what I'm hearing, is probably going to be New York Pro in upcoming May. Steve Weinberger's show, Powerhouse Gym. Yeah. So gotta get that in there. So Ramy was that was a story, and people didn't talk about it as much, and rightfully so, because you don't want to kick a guy when he's down. But when Ramy came out, you immediately knew he was not going to be in the mix for this, right?
Yeah, I was very disappointed. But you know what? Also, I think one of the biggest stories of 2018 is how he transformed in 24 hours. Like we've seen guys come back dramatically better for the next day. But I'm trying to, honestly, I've been racking my brains today. I've been trying to think if there's been anyone that has changed more in 24 hours that Ramy did. And it's such a shame, because it was too little too late. Yeah. As it stands, I think if he'd have looked like he did at Saturday on the Friday, it would have been between him and Bonac for 4th. I think that's fair. What do you think?
Yeah, I could have seen that for sure. Like you said, too, it's funny because that was Phil was notorious for coming in so much better every Saturday night, and that was always enough for him to keep guys like Kai from beating him.
Yeah.
But in the case of that, he could have gone up to maybe as high as 4th, but for a guy that was 2nd place and everyone's talking about him as possibly winning this year, it was kind of a letdown. And I'm sure Ramy was the most disappointed of everybody.
Yeah, he was very, very upset, Ramy. I remember I saw some messages he sent to someone, I won't mention their name, because I was talking to him at the expo on the Saturday at the Olympia, and he was very upset with himself. He was he seemed very, really, really upset, really crazy upset. So, but I'm very excited, because when I heard he left, I thought, well, I hope he works with either Patrick Tuer or Neil Hill, and he's working with Neil. Now, the thing with Neil is, Neil just won't bring him in condition. Neil will make adjustments to his physique. Like if you look at Flex Lewis's physique and William Bonac's physique, they're very, very well thought out physiques. You can tell that, these are physiques that haven't sort of been brought together by accident. These have been meticulously planned out. So I'm more excited. We know full well that if Ramy is under, like Neil did with Zach Khan. He brought Zach in 2009 when he won the British, 258. He brought him in like we've never seen ever before, since or before. So he can get guys in condition. That's not an issue. Yeah. But whether he can rebalance out that physique, whether he can bring that waist in, do something with those legs, because they're just, to me, I think they look ugly. I think they spoil the flow of physique. Because actually, if you look at Rami's like side chest, side tricep, radial bicep, he's actually got a very nice shape for quite a big guy. But it's these front poses because the front lat spread, which I know he looks wide, the ab and thigh, but the waist does look thick. So if Neil kind of really addresses that and brings that waist in a couple of inches and does something with the lower half and gets more detail, which I'm sure he will, then I'm really excited to see what. I mean, I could see Rami certainly back up in the first call out next year. And I mean, I was talking to Neil recently about because I put him in because I've got my new MD column, MD Global Muscle Buzz.
That's right.
In the February edition, which is out in January, which is out next month.
It's coming out January 1st or 2nd, I believe. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. And in that, I've interviewed Neil Hill about Rami, and it's interesting because Rami right now still doesn't know where he's going to be moving to. It might be Egypt, it might be even staying in Kuwait, or it might be somewhere else, which I'll leave for people to read in my column. Because really, right now he needs to he's under Neil's tutelage. Tutelage, yeah. He's under that, but he's kind of more. Neil said he's more concerned about what you'll really get cracking, Neil, when Rami decides where he wants to move to.
Florida. Yes. Okay.
You know what? This is what I hinted at. I wouldn't be. Why doesn't he move to America?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he already left. Egypt's his home country. If you're not going to be there, what does it matter where you live?
Yeah, exactly. He's obviously used to living away. So why doesn't he just move to and go train at Flex Lewis's gym and have Neil train him there and it'd be all under the one sort of camp? You know, to me, if I was Rami now, I'd be moving to America straight away.
Because when he came out and I saw those quads, you know, I love to see big legs. I've always admired guys like Platts and that and so on. But I said, there's somebody at some point over the past year or two should have said, chill out on those quads, Rami. They're too much. It's starting to throw everything off. Because I know Flex Lewis in his early days, he was quad dominant and it threw everything off. And like you said, Neil looked at it and said, no, you need to. I believe he scaled back on his leg training a lot.
Big time.
At a certain point back then, and focused on getting the upper body to match before you allowed him to really go full house on his legs again. And I mean, it's great that you say that Neil is gonna. It's not just a condition issue; it's his physique, and Neil has such an eye for sculpting and putting the right sort of balance and proportions together.
That's what he's good at. That's what Neil's good at, and I know that Neil will, because Neil is so meticulous with the training plans, and it's like I remember seeing Flex Lewis at the 2011 British Grand Prix, won the 202, and he was next to all the other guys, and he hit a radial bicep, and he had bits on his back that none of the other pros had. It was just these little bits of development on the outer scapula, and just like so much going on. And it's like you can't just develop that by just doing the basics and doing the same as everybody else. You've got to really. It takes a lot of planning. It does take a lot of planning and a lot of close attention to detail. Like I know that Neil would have been analysing. He'll be analysing Rami's physique, and he'll be okay. Then we need to do this, and he'll know exactly how to make those changes implemented into his physique. So that for me is the most exciting part, to see how Rami will look. I don't care what. I think we've all got over the weight thing now. We realise, okay, well, it was great to see a 300-pound bodybuilder on stage in condition, but now we want to see something different because he's been second, and that was without those serious changes to his physique. Now, if he can do that, then I mean, who cares what he weighs? He'll look sensational.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it with so many people. I mean, over the past few years about what Rami needs to do, and so many great minds and great people with great eyes for physique said if he would stop trying to be 300 pounds and maybe be 270 or something with that crazy detail and dryness, it'd be frightening to see. So we'll see. It
worked for Dorian, didn't it? Because Dorian could have always come in 10, 15, 20 pounds heavier, but he always chose to
condition.
Yeah, the condition. Oh man, imagine him in like a Dorian Yates condition with his legs more balanced. And because I remember for the first couple of years, Rami really lacked in the glutes, the hams, the calves, and his quads. But now he's brought his calves up. His glutes and his hams are more developed now. He just needs to sort those quads out and just bring that waist in a little bit and try and get some more detail going on around in the upper body, which will come through intelligent training. And I'm very excited to see what will happen in next year.
So a couple other things happened at that Olympia. Flex Lewis retired from the 212. He's not retired, as we all know. Again, guys, go to that full-length interview, soundcloud.com, our YouTube channel for the very lengthy, very open and honest interview Flex Lewis gave to Giles on MD Global Muscle Radio. He'll be back as an opening, but not till 2020. So it wasn't as emotional as it would have been if he was retiring for good, but it was still, that class, that division, the 212 division, which was 202 when him and Jose and Dave Henry and those guys all started out years ago. He was the 7 years in a row. He was, even before he was champion, he was always right there knocking on the door of winning. He was the greatest. He is definitely going to go down. I don't see anyone else taking this away from him as the greatest 212 bodybuilder of all time. So in that sense, but you've known Flex since he was a junior, correct?
Yeah, I've known Flex since 2000. And we first met in the British finals at the hotel in 2003, and we've become really good friends ever since. And I think for me, probably one of the highlights was seeing how Flex looked at this year's Olympian, not because of just how he looked, but how he bounced back from what happened the year before, when with Dallas dying, and then obviously at the Hurricane. And I spoke to Flex after that 2017 Olympia, and there was a period of time where he went through where he didn't know whether he was even going to compete again. And he said he went through a bit of a difficult time, sort of soul searching. And then he said something just kind of clicked, and he just decided he wasn't going to go out like that, and he wanted to come back and do one more, a 212, but go out at his all-time best. And he said as soon as he commanded his mind that was what was going to happen, he said he put on something like, regained a lot of muscle, and he said his physique just changed in like a few weeks. And to be honest, I didn't think it was possible for him to look like that at 212. He looked like when we see him at 220 at 4 or 5 weeks out, because about 4 or 5 weeks out, Flex said to me, so that Superstar seminar, I said, Flex, what would you say is your best physique? What weight are you? And I had a figure in my head, and he said I had 225 in my head, and he went 226. He said, to be honest, Giles, that is me at my best. So you think about a guy who's 5'4" taking 14 pounds off that, he's going to lose. So basically what I'm saying, I thought we'd seen the best of him because that was the best he could bring at 212. But he didn't. He brought something completely different to this Olympia. I mean, I think even if Hadi had turned up, I think he'd have still won. I think he'd have still won quite comfortably, because I think that was playing on his mind as well, because a lot of people were saying, is he really the 212 Olympia champ? Because if Hadi just can't get to America, and I think that's what fueled him. That got him really pissed off, and I think it really fueled him to bring something to say right, and so he could just finish off on a high and go, right, that's me. I am really the undisputed best. And I think you can't argue with what he brought, because everyone else was battling for second place. And years before, I've seen, it's been very, very close between, guys like Eduardo Correa and Jose, and and this year it was literally it was a battle for second place. Yeah.
So the other guy that retired was Jose. He just retired after the Tokyo show. And I was wrong. In the MD we wrote it on the cover, I said the Dominican Republic was his 10th pro win. It was actually his 12th pro win. He corrected me on Ronline a few days ago, or actually a week ago now. I get numbers wrong constantly. But, Jose had been competing for 25 years. His first show was in 93. He was eligible to become a pro the first time in 2001.
Yeah.
He did not take the pro card until the fourth time he earned it in 2007. And didn't make his pro debut till 2009, so that would have been 8 seasons as a pro he could have had prior to that, had he chosen to. But there was no 202 division or anything. To him, it made no sense to be 154 pounds, which the first time he earned his pro card, he was a lightweight. So he knew he was just going to be in the shadow of some big guy standing next to him, and it would be pointless. But yeah, I mean, that's another legend. That's another guy. If they did a 212 Mount Rushmore, it'd be Flex Lewis, Jose Raymond, I guess Dave Henry, and Kevin English. I guess that would be my 4 that I put on there.
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore.
Very little one.
Yeah, exactly. Karoo. You had to go with it. So.
It was. I love Jose. I absolutely loved his speech at the press conference at the Olympia, which, as you know, was a bit awkward at points, and I felt like it was a really nice what he said about conducting himself with class. I think Jose's one of those people that has he got any haters in the industry? Has anyone legitimately who knows him
No,
or is
no.
could anyone have something really bad to say about him? I mean, what a legacy to go out. And the thing is, he's not going to disappear because he's so active in the sport. And the thing is, with Jose, it's not his physique's not his best attribute, and he's amazing bodybuilder. It's his personality. He's just so likable. He's someone that needs to be coming to shows with you, doing wrap-ups and doing show coverage. He's a personality, and that is something that, even if you do stop competing, you'll never, ever lose relevance. And but yeah, it's nice to go out on top as well because he still went out with wins. And I wish him all the best with his hip replacement because that's going to be a tough one for him. But
his older brother, who's my age, he's going to be 50 next year, Tito. He had a double hip replacement.
Oh, really?
And I go to Tito's Instagram. He's squatting 405 and doing all kinds of.
Hang on a minute. Tito's 50.
He'll be 50 next August. He's 49 right now.
He looks like a junior.
Exactly. And he's 175 pounds. You could tell him,
No.
You could sign him up for triathlon tomorrow. He'd be like, okay, he'd go do it. Runs up mountains. He's like, the whole family's crazy at it, but especially that Tito and Jose were both incredible athletes when they were younger. And
amazing. Yeah, they're both. I just don't want to see Jose go out of the sport. I think that would be very disappointing. And I'm glad. I hope he finds a way to, like a lot of the pros, they find a new way to kind of reinvent themselves. And because it's when you go to a show, it's always a little bit better when Jose's in attendance.
Yeah.
You're going to be following him to the bar or the after party afterwards. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've partied with Jose a few times and we've done shots and
he'll be at the shows. Plus, his wife just started competing as a pro.
Yes.
Unless he knocks her up like right away, she'll be doing shows. So he'll be supporting her at shows.
I remember when he bit that girl's shoulder in the Arnold Classic after party with a girl he was training, and he said, "Look out!" And her husband was stood next to him, and he says, "Look out! Look at this girl's shoulders!" He went, he didn't do it hard, and it was it was really funny to see the girl's reaction. She just squealed. Everyone just started laughing, and it was like, okay, but it was typical.
Useless Jose trivia. He trains one of my older brothers. Did you know that? Yeah.
Oh, really?
True story. Other big story of the Olympia 212, have to mention, is Derek Lunsford going all the way up to second place in his second year. And he's only 26. He's still a very young guy. He's only done a couple pro shows. Actually, I think that was his only third. He did Tampa Pro was his pro debut, week after he turned pro. Won that. Went to Olympia last year, got 5th place. And then this year, all the way up to second. I know you didn't have him in second. You had Kamal El-Garni. We'll talk about Kamal in a minute, but still, that's an amazing accomplishment for this young guy, who's a few years ago he was a middleweight like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about a rise.
Derek for me is probably one of the fastest rising stars in bodybuilding. He's doing everything right. I mean, I interviewed him at the Olympia, and I said, you know what? Just sounds like a strange question, Derek. I says, but since you've seen you move to Florida, because he uprooted and went to Florida to train at Ben Pakulski's, I said, you're someone that has become a product of his environment. And he went, Giles, I'm glad you said that. He says, I'm glad you've noticed that. Because there's someone that has put himself in the right environment. And he's, they will say, like, if you put a goldfish in a bigger tank, it will just automatically grow bigger. Yeah. I said, you're like a goldfish in a big tank. You're just going to grow to be like a shark. But he's, I said, if you remember after the 2017 Olympia, we did the wrap-up. And I said, when Derek got 5th, and that was his second pro show, and he won the Rookie of the Year. Right. And I said, look, I honestly believe he is going to be the next 212 Mr. Olympia. I do believe he will be the 212 Olympia champion. I just don't know when. I don't know whether it'll either be next year or the year after, or the year after that. But the thing is, he's at 27. He trained. You can see all his stuff on Instagram.
He's 26 at the very oldest. He might still be 25.
He trains smart. have you seen him now? He's still not put any body fat on. He just looks bigger.
It's huge.
Do you know what though? For how he looked at the Olympia, if he was bang on 212. Do you think maybe he could try his hand at open? Because those photos we saw at 4 or 5 weeks out, I don't know what he was weighing. I'm assuming maybe like 220 from how he flattened out for the Olympia, maybe 220, 225. I wouldn't mind seeing him try an open show. He's someone that could do both. He could. with no weight restriction, if he really did struggle to make it down to 212 for this year's Olympia, I could see him winning. I could see him do a Bonac and move up to open and win open pro shows. But having said that, he's still. I mean, he got second place. He is going to win. He is going to win a 212 Olympia title at some point, whether it be next year or the year after. But he's absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to see how he progresses. And he's a nice kid as well. I mean, he's always been so easy to get hold of for clips from a Muscle News Weekly show, and he's always very polite, and he's just a joy to connect with. You know, he's
people don't realize that goes a long way with the media side, because if we're trying to get hold of you and we're texting you and calling and a week goes by, it's frustrating. And it's such a it's so refreshing when someone like Derek, they're like, oh, you got to hold, they text you right back, or they answer the phone and you can do an interview with them that day or maybe the next day at the latest. You know,
and you know what? Like sometimes you got to look at like who are the ones that keep popping up on Ronline, the ones that keep popping up in my show, the ones that keep getting mentioned by other people. It's them. They're the ones that are that keen to work with the media. The ones you have to chase are the ones that don't get mentioned. They don't get opportunities. And the thing is, you create more opportunities, you'll get more sponsorships, you'll get more things will come your way. So it's part of being a professional. That, you know, and he's just always seems really like pleased and not grateful, but he's always very appreciative, and it's nice to have that kind of interaction with a professional when you're a professional media worker. Right. So he's someone who's he's going to always maximize his own potential, not just with his bodybuilding, but with his career and his opportunities that come his way, and I love that about him. So
let's talk about the 212 surprise of the year. Not a surprise to you, of course. But to everybody else, including me. So we're at the Arnold. We're at that the meet and greet thing the night before. Judge, would they do that Thursday night?
Yeah.
And Kamal's over there in the corner. Nobody's going over to talk to him. Nobody's taking a picture with him. No. And Giles is like, we should go interview him. I'm like, why are we going to interview him? Because he's from England. I thought, you know, you have this bias toward the UK guys, and yeah, you're telling me, no, he's good enough. He could win this thing. I'm like, yeah, whatever, Giles. He could win this thing. I've never heard of the guy. How good can he possibly be? Then he gets on stage and boom, yeah, that's how good he is. You know, you would know this guy's been like an amazing international champion, winning every single international title as an amateur you can win for years and years and years. Was having a lot of issues getting his pro card status because of the old system that's no longer in place. And when finally that was all sorted out and he got up on the Arnold stage, which is a crazy show to make your debut in. That's your first IFBB Pro League show, the Arnold Classic. Good luck. Good luck, guy. Yeah. And boom, yeah, I had to say, that's it, Giles. You were right. I was wrong. This guy's amazing. My only fear with him is how much longer is Kamal going to be competing?
Well, I went to see Kamal. Me and Rosie went down after, because, you know, he tore his calf a couple of days before the Olympia.
Yeah.
He was posing for Chris Aceto in his calf tore. And he couldn't fly back after the Olympia because he wasn't allowed to fly. So he had to stay out there for a few weeks. What? So his manager from his gym, Better Bodies in Northampton, messaged me and he said, Giles, we're having like a bit of a welcome home party, a surprise welcome home party for Kamal. We've got an Olympia cake, and we've got local radio, we've got the local press, all the gym's going to be there. Will you come down? I said, yeah, of course I will. Yeah. So me and Rosie drove down, and and he said to me then, I said, so what's the plan, mate? And he says, well, I'm starting my Olympia prep in January. He says, I'm not doing any other pro shows, and he said, I'm gonna win the Olympia, the 212 Olympia next year, and I'm gonna do one more year, then I'm retiring at 48.
Wow.
So he wants to do 2019, 2020, and go out, and that's. Drop the mic, off he goes with his Olympia, hopefully with his Olympia title, 1 or 2 in the bag. But the thing is, what actually shocked me, and I didn't realize until I spoke to him at that party, he only weighed in at 205.
Wow.
So you think he's got an advantage that other guys don't. You've got guys that are struggling and losing fullness to try and make it down to the 212.
Yeah.
And then there's him. I mean, he doesn't even need to come in at 212. He could come in at 208, 2 or 3 pounds, because he's got such a small, compact frame. Right. And his conditioning was so good. He's got a lot of room to maneuver there. And I said to him, I said, Kamal, just keep that waist small, keep that waist tight, and just don't worry about your body weight. If you're 205, you're 206, 207, it doesn't matter. As long as you bring that condition in again, you could win this. And the thing is, like, his posing he's one of the best posers, but he couldn't even do his proper posing routine at the Olympia because he couldn't get into the floor poses because he had like all these beautiful Mohamed Makawi type floor poses, which is kind of it's his calling card, his posing. I've seen him pose at his best, and he is amazing. And he said he put all his beautiful routine together, and he didn't get to do it, so he had to really improvise because he said he was in agony. Because somebody said on the forum, so why is one of his calves got implants or synthol?
Synthol. I thought it was oil. Yeah.
He's torn it, and it swelled up. Literally, I mean, he was in bed for days before. He could hardly walk. So he was up on stage in a lot of pain. He didn't even want to take painkillers because he didn't want to hold water. So he was in agony. So the guy's a trooper.
He is a trooper. I never, until you, I don't think even anybody knew that until a few days after Olympia when you posted something about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, or maybe did we do it? Did you mention the wrap up? Maybe
yeah, they sometimes can cause a tiny bit of water retention, which is obviously a no for bodybuilders. So he just grit his teeth and got through it. But so for next year, obviously the thing is, remember at the Arnold Classic, and even after he'd won, I said, that's still not Kamal at his best. That's Kamal at 85%. Wait till you see him at the Olympia. And even when he won the Arnold, people still, like Sean Roden, still didn't even have him in their top 5. I think one person on the forum had Kamal maybe 4th or 5th. Yeah. So for him to sort of get 3rd and possibly as well, I think deserves 2nd. It's and he's still really making his comeback. He's still not into the full swing of things. He says a full year, like a 9-month prep for the Olympia. He says, I'm going to go really nice and slow. He's going to take a good rest now, get his calf better, and then he's going all out. He's not messing about for this Olympia.
Yeah, we'll just mention it briefly because, I love the Arnold Classic. The promoters, they do an amazing job. I love that. I love the atmosphere there and everything. They treat us well, which I always appreciate. Yes. But they got rid of the 212. They discontinued it because they really weren't getting enough top names applying for it. So it didn't make sense. Just like, they had dropped women's bodybuilding a few years ago, and now 212. But I think you said it might come back, and I think that may happen too. Maybe next year or the year after. 212 might come back to the Arnold. I don't think it's a final forever thing, do you?
No. I'm a little bit confused by their reason because the show is an invite only.
Yeah.
So they got 7 people at the 7 212s at the Olympia this year. Mm-hmm. There was probably 15 that applied.
Yeah.
So if, say, they said yes to 8 or 9 and then 1 or 2 pulled out, do they not need to maybe make, because I know the women's physique and the men's physique at the Arnold is open.
Right.
And it's not an invite. So why don't they just make it a non-invite only? Just make the open men's an invite only. I think if they did that, they'd have the stage rammed. They'd probably have 20 guys up there. Yeah. So I'm not fully buying that reason they've given. I think, and the 212 is a big draw. So like you said, I think they probably will skip a year and then bring it back. I'm hoping they do, but I hope they bring it back as an open 212. Yep. So they allow anyone to, not just invites, to show up, because I think that's restricted. That's restricted the that's why only 7 turned up. We want to see at least a dozen up there.
I wouldn't want to see, like, you look at the list of men's physique and women's physique, not to knock them, but I haven't heard of half of those people. Not that I'm the most astute scholar of the sport anymore, but I wouldn't want to see 30 guys in the 212 if 20 of them are guys I've barely ever heard of. So we'll see. That's a developing story.
Just relax the invitation. Just invite more people. Invite more good names. If they get 20, 30 applications, invite 15. Don't just invite 7 or 8. It's because I was disappointed to see 7, and it's like and it was a good lineup. It was a good lineup apart from that. It was, but I want to see more up there. At least I like to see, like the Olympia. I don't like to see. There was one Olympia one year, was it 1990? It was like 14 guys. I like to see the Olympias where there's more. And I know they try and restrict that because they don't get to pose and stuff, but I still like to see at least 20 guys in the Olympia lineups in the open. And I would love to see at least 10 to 12 good 212s at the Arnold, and they need to start inviting more.
Cool. All right, let's turn our attention to classic physique. We had a couple guys this year that moved from open bodybuilding successfully to classic physique. The first one was back in May in New York. Regan Grimes was supposed to do the New York Pro Open. He was posting about it up until the very day of the show. up until open guys came out and he wasn't there, and I was like, where the hell is Regan? Did he pass out backstage? Did they take him to the hospital? Is he okay? And then, someone said, oh, he just posted on his Instagram he's doing Classic. Oh, okay. Then, 10 minutes later he comes out in the Classic trunks. Dropped a ton of weight. He dropped I think he dropped like 25 pounds in 2 days to make the weight for it. And but it paid off. He won. Went to Olympia. Didn't do as well as some had hoped, but he was still in the top 10. I think he was 8th. And then Henri Pierre Arnaud, who we had both seen in Tampa the last year you went to it when Rosie was in it, 2017. He was a pretty decent open competitor, but didn't want to push his body up to 270 or whatever it would have taken with his height and his frame to be a really good open guy. Dropped down to Classic and won. Geez, I've been to so many shows this year. Tampa. He won the Tampa show, which, the year before he had been, I think, 4th in the Open.
Was it Toronto he won?
Was it Toronto?
I can't remember. No, I can't remember. Too many shows.
I want to say it was Tampa. Yeah.
Probably was Tampa because he'd done Tampa the year before as an Open, so it probably was.
I'm pretty sure it was Tampa. Anyway, he won that, and he goes to the Olympia in Classic and gets 4th place, which, I don't know if he ever would have gotten top 4 at the Open Olympia, no matter how much size he ever put on. But the guy has a fantastic physique, little tiny, tiny waist, clavicles and shoulders out to here. Just, beautiful. And we're seeing more of these taller guys come in, like Wesley Vissers.
Yep.
The Steve Loris is a taller guy. We're seeing a lot. Bumstead's like 6 foot. The Classic was the 3rd season for Classic Physique, and we've already seen it go from something that we didn't even know if it was going to last. We thought maybe this was like a little experiment that might fail, because we're all kind of like, well, let's wait and see before we really get all excited about this. But it's definitely here to stay. I know you like the Classic Physique too, right?
Well, if you want to talk about Henri Pierre Arnaud, he was one, when I heard that he was going to do Classic, I just didn't see how he was going to bring a physique that wouldn't look stringy as a Classic. Because I saw him at Tampa and he's a big, big dude. Yeah. And I just thought, I know it's height and weight, and because I've done Classic myself, that was my last show, and it's a height and weight ratio. And I just thought, I don't see it. I just think he's just going to look like he's going to look completely stringy. Yeah. So when I saw the pictures of him winning the qualifier, I was so shocked. I just thought, oh my God, he's held every bit of size, and he looks better. And remember, we ran after him in the lobby at the Olympia, when this year's Olympia, we ran after. I grabbed him. I said, I want to tell you, you've been really one of the biggest shocks of the Olympia, because at the judging, I thought he could have won it. Honestly, I would have had no arguments if they'd have placed him first. And I know Bumstead and Brion looked better on the second day. Henri kind of looked the same, and then you had George Peterson kind of in the middle. Right. But 4th place, he looked absolutely tremendous, and what a beautiful shape. A good-looking guy, lovely aesthetic physique, and like I said, I was shocked at how good he looked as a Classic, because I thought, this guy's too heavily muscled to be in this category. He's just going to look rubbish, but he didn't. He looked fantastic. Yeah.
We're seeing more so in the Classic than we even ever did, I think, in the Open. These cases of apples and oranges. Because you get a physique like Henri that's tall and longer limbs, and how do you judge that against Brion, who's 5'5" or 5'6", more compact? Peterson's the same thing, really compact. It's almost, I don't want to give them any ideas, but it's almost like they should have a short class and a tall class or something. Don't do that. Please don't do that, IPB. But, but the last story, I wrote that thinking there's not going to be anything eventful happening in bodybuilding or a Classic. Nothing's going to happen. And just a couple days ago, NPC IFBB put out a press release about new posing trunks, which I've been bitching about those, what I call bike shorts, since day one. I thought these are just, to me, they always look kind of ridiculous. Like, are they going to go out for a bike race after the show? Or they covered up the top of the quads, the top of the hams, and they just released new trunks. You got cat problems over there? What's going on?
No. I'm just I'm looking at a picture of me, like he did Classic in. Hang on a minute. I did Classic in 2013. Now I know I've got my baggies on there. Oh. I've got proper trunks on.
Well, yours was called Classic Bodybuilding, right?
Yeah, classic bodybuilding. Yeah, classic bodybuilding. It was, I think my maximum weight was 183 centimeters. It could be 91 kilo. And because I've competed at 93 previously, but I probably wouldn't have done that class if I'd have been made to wear those shorts. I just didn't, I wore proper trunks.
Well, I'm curious. Classic bodybuilding, which was huge in Europe, and they even had it at the Arnold Amateur in the U.S. a couple times.
Yeah.
Could you wear any trunks you wanted, or did they say they had to be wider on the side or anything?
No, they put just normal trunks.
Really?
Trunks.
Okay.
I can tell you a very quick funny story because when I was backstage, I was saying to my friend, I said, mate, these trunks don't feel right. I said, I feel like I'm going to pop out on stage. So he said, right, let's go to the toilets. He says, no, I'll have a look. Because obviously I had to take them off. Yeah. So I pulled my baggies down and took my top off. And he went, Giles, he says, you put your leg through the waist. So I had one pit side, which was the waistband, and the other side was like the leg thing. So it looked, the thing is, if I'd have walked on stage doing that, the judges probably would have disqualified me and thought I was taking the piss, because someone with my experience, he's not going to do something that dumb. But I nearly did. So luckily, I went, take them off, and I put them on properly again and walked on stage, and there was no plumage.
Taking the piss means like being a wise ass.
Yeah,
like okay.
Being a wise ass.
I hear you guys say that all the time, and I can kind of get the context of it, but okay, now I know. See, I don't think they were ever going to make the trunks. They were ever going to say, okay, classic guys, you can just wear the same trunks as the open guys, because I do think it's important that they do set it apart. I thought maybe they would go for like the pumping iron era trunks, where they were wider on the side.
Yeah,
but these are the new trunks are a big improvement, big step up, because now you can see pretty much the entirety of the quads, the entirety of the hams. The glutes are covered, which if it's going to be harkening back to the classic era, which nobody was showing their glutes and nobody worried about strided glutes, that's great. I have no issues with that. So would you rather see these classic guys in regular trunks?
I would rather, because the thing is, it's like, now we've got the class established. We know the difference. It's like the criteria set. The guys are knowing exactly what to do. Yeah. I just think, and plus, whether we like it or not, the glutes and the hamstrings, they're such an indicator of condition. So you've got guys like Breon and who's turning up with these shredded hamstrings, and George Peterson turned up absolutely. And the thing is, because it's a height and weight limit, they are coming in and they're not as big, they're not huge, they are coming in really dry and shredded. Yeah. And it is an indicator of condition. So I think you need to be able to show the glutes to sort of show off, especially those guys that are doing all that dieting and training, and then it's like it's like when sometimes we see these men's physique guy and they pull their short legs up and they've got these huge quads, and you just think, what a shame, you're never going to get to show that on stage. Yeah. You just think, you poor bastards.
See, I see it both ways. I see it where you say, yeah, the glutes, if somebody's in that condition, it's kind of a shame you never get to see it, and they never get to show you all that hard work, because it's not easy to get that type of condition. It's a very extreme thing for the body to do. But on the other hand, I could see where you still need to keep it distinguished from all the other divisions.
Right.
MPD, men's physique, needs to have the board shorts, so you immediately know, okay, men's physique is on. And these guys have the shorts, you go, okay, now it's classic. And then open, okay, the trunk, the sparkly thong, that's open.
Do you know what someone said to me? It's like, really the men's classic is kind of what they tried to do with the women's physique for female bodybuilding. Mm. Arguable? Is it like it's arguable that it's a downscaled, less size.
Yes. So, but the women's physique, obviously, as we know, it basically is turning back into women's bodybuilding, because they don't have any weight restrictions. No?
I feel like it's coming back now. I think with Shanique's win, I think what I saw at the Olympia last year, because I was afraid that it was going to step over the line, and it was starting to, the bigger, harder, shredded, more freakier girls were sort of doing better in the women's physique, and I thought, oh no, it's just creeping up to women's bodybuilding. And then at the Olympia, I was expecting Shanique to come in absolutely gigantic, because she was starting to get bigger and bigger. And there's a couple of other girls that had brought a more hardcore look the year before. And they brought, in fact, one of them I actually said, because she messaged me, Michaela Aycock, she came in with a more, I don't want to use the word feminine, but it was a less thickly muscled, and it was a more, in my eyes, a women's physique look. And I said to her, I said, this is fantastic. She's really, and I think, if those top girls are coming in like that and they're being rewarded for it, then I don't see it turning into female bodybuilding, because the thing is, female bodybuilding's had a bit of a return as well with all the Wings of Strength, the Jake Wood.
Jake and Wings of Strength and Tim and Eileen Gardner, they're the ones keeping women's bodybuilding alive. Basically, those three people.
It's alive and kicking, and I tell you what, I mean, AJ was saying about Romania. He said, I'm telling you what, Giles, he says, female bodybuilding is not, if you come to one of these Wings of Strength show, he says, female bodybuilding is alive and well, and there is a lot of support, and there's a lot of love for it. So, in fact, AJ was talking today because he wants to do like a female bodybuilding special on the Global Muscle Radio. Right. So we're going to look at that as well, because you know, there's a big pool of talent out there, and he said they're really nice to interact with as well. I mean, Rosie said that in Muscle News Weekly the week. She says, if you ever meet any of some of the top female bodybuilders, she said they're some of the nicest people you ever meet, and I think maybe they do need a bit of publicity because there is a big fan base. Yeah. And I think it's great that they've still got places to compete, you know. But it's also good that the women's physique is kind of holding its level, and I think. If you've got winners like Julia Malakan and Shanique and stuff like that, I think the class is in safe hands, and I think it's going in the right direction, because about only a few months ago, I mean, I've been quite vocal about it. I was like, oh, this, you know, because Rosie didn't want to compete anymore, and she thought it was all going towards. But from what I'm seeing, I think they pulled it back. I think they announced they didn't want to see as much conditioning, and I think the athletes have listened. So for that reason, I'm really happy.
Did you just hint at a Rascal comeback?
No.
Okay, all right, well,
no. I'd love to. Well, she started training again today.
Okay.
And yesterday she trained. So, yeah. I mean, yeah. We'll see. Maybe I can encourage her another year or so. But she seems very happy just doing her thing at the moment, doing all the different things she's doing.
My New Year's resolution for the Ronline Report is to have at least one woman on in 2019, because the Ronline Report is a bit of a sausage fest. I don't know if you ever noticed. It's not intentional. Even my daughter said. My daughter, who doesn't follow any of this, she goes, but she sees the Facebook things that I share. She goes, "Do you ever have women on your show?" I'm like, once in a great while. She's like, "Well, what's your problem?" I said, "No, it's not. It's not like I have nothing against women. I love women. It's just I don't know. I just need to make an effort and stop being going the easy route, because it's easy for me to talk to guys. I'm shy. I don't know how to talk to girls, but I'll figure it out."
No, the thing is, I mean, Rosie was doing a lot of the chick chats. She did Malakan. She did, and then we did one with Jen Taylor. Yeah. And I did that one with Tony Fimp, and we had problems with the audio. Right. We had problems with the sound. We didn't record her voice, so we kind of got involved in I got involved in the radio thing, and I just pushed ahead with Muscle News Weekly. Yeah. But if we can get that fixed, then maybe Rosie could start banging out some more chick chats, because she did some really good work with those the episodes that she did. I mean, she did Danny Reardon, Juliana Malcana. I think she likes still having contact with those athletes, because I think we wanted to get Natalia Coelho on, Shanique. Shanique we were trying to get, but she was ready. She was getting ready for the Olympia, so we kind of left her alone. But maybe in the new year we'll get some restarted, and that way you can just focus on, because we all kind of have our own things. Me and Rosie got Muscle News Weekly. You've got Ronline. We've got the radio thing with AJ, and it's nice because they're all different styles, and it's like you could do Jose one week and I could do Jose the next week, and people will watch both because they're completely different styles. It's a completely different setup, different questions, different feel. You know, like with the radio thing, it's me and AJ, and we're both interviewing someone, and we got you got the studio. So that's why I don't think we ever have to worry about guests clashing.
No, I mean, AJ changes the game completely. So any interview where AJ is a part of the process, it's going to be like no interview of that person you've ever seen before. These
last couple of episodes. I mean, I haven't said this yet. I wasn't too well, and I've actually watched them both back. And I don't think you can tell that I was ready to keel over. But the good thing was, because I was really not, my blood sugar had gone crazy. And literally before we started filming, it was like 21, which is like dangerous. It's dangerous levels. So I was really kind of like really struggling to kind of, focus. It makes you very foggy headed. Yeah. And AJ picked up the slack. So that's what makes him such a good co-host, because he could see that I was struggling that day, because we filmed 2 over 2 days, and I really appreciate the fact that he kind of took the reins a little bit. So that's why it works well having him as a co-host, because it's like you and me. We have we've got a good back and forth with these run lines, and we've done all the Olympias and Arnolds together, and it's we all kind of work well individually and together. Yeah,
well, it has been quite a 2018 for the sport and for MD. lot of changes, a lot of pleasant surprises this year. 2019 is going to be a pretty amazing year. We've got all kinds of things to look forward to in the sport and with what we're doing. Again, I want to encourage everyone, go to SoundCloud and download and listen to MD Global Muscle Radio. Giles and AJ interview the very top names in the sport like nobody else interviews them. The stuff they pull out of these people is incredible. Every week or every other week sometimes, Giles and Rosie do Muscle News Weekly. You can find that on YouTube, on the Muscular Development YouTube channel. You can also find the MD Global Muscle Radio on YouTube, so you can see these people while they're talking. And,
what about Hot News starting as well?
Oh, that's right. Tell us about that, yeah.
Well, because I spoke to Steve about this, and then when we kind of negotiated everything, we kind of got left because Steve was really focused on doing the Global Muscle Radio and doing it well. Yeah. But then I kind of restarted the idea of doing something called Global Muscle Hot News, where, because obviously the podcasts are long, the Muscle News Weekly is an hour and a half, and sometimes, the ones that do well is like the instant news. So if we get just say like today, the news broke that Rami was, left and now he's working with Neil Hill, I would instantly I'd do a video of my take. I'd get either say you or AJ or somebody else to send me a video, or I'd do a Skype chat. So basically they're going to be short videos that are going to be up within hours of news happening. So if we get two lots of big news that week, within a few hours, because I've got all the equipment at home, I can edit myself. Yeah. The fun bit is going to be how quick we can do it. So, and I can think I've got all the telephone numbers of all the pros, so I can get them to send little videos and I can implement them and say, oh, so what do you think about Kamal saying he's going to win the Olympia, Derek Lunsford, and then Derek sends a clip. So it's going to be, we're talking like maybe 3 to 7, 8 minute videos, but they're going to be going up fast. Yeah. So see, when the news comes, obviously I do Muscle News Weekly, we do the radio show, we're going to have these videos up quick. So that's
so important.
I'm kind of always on standby, and it's going to be fun to kind of get them up fast and see people's reactions. And so that's something that's going to happen in the new year. I'm not going to do any to the end of the year because I'm really going to relax over this next week or so. And also we're doing a Muscle News Weekly, and we're going to be airing that on New Year's Eve.
Oh, that's right.
That's going to be because there's no Global Muscle Radio, because we're skipping a week because obviously New Year's Eve we didn't want to release an episode then. Right. So we're going to do kind of what you and I have done here. We're going to do like a recap of the year from mine and Rosie's perspective, because it's been a very busy. I've been to the Arnold, the Olympias, and her pro show, and obviously everything we've been doing with all my MD work and the supplement thing and everything. So that's going to go up New Year's Eve. So, and I think we're going to maybe have a glass of wine whilst we're filming. So we'll see how crazy it gets.
Have you ever watched a show called Drunk History?
Yes, yeah. No, we won't be drunk. We're just going to be. You're not going to be hammered. We're not going to be like stripping and singing and all that sort of stuff. We're going to be professional, but we're going to have fun and a relaxed episode.
I've been toying with that idea about doing my own version of that, just for shits and giggles. I'd be like drunk and be holding the drink. I'd say, "I'm Ron Harris. This is the story of the 1991 Mr. Olympia," or something. Yeah, this is the story of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you tell them their story.
Right.
But it wouldn't be as cool without that show. The reenactments are what really makes it hilarious.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be quite as funny. Anyway, well, Giles, thank you for everything you've done. Not just this year, leading in the past, in many years leading up to it, but this year has been, you have really helped take MD to another level with everything that you've been doing. You, Rosie, now Chris Clark and AJ helping out. Everyone on that side of the pond has really helped MD rise to another level, and we appreciate it so much.
The team's growing nicely, and I feel very, very happy and very, very, like, me and AJ speak all day long. Obviously, me and Rosie live together, so we're kind of we're excited for next year because and also I want to thank Steve as well for setting, because I wanted this position with MD. I wanted it for about 8 years, and finally I kind of got the what I wanted, really. So it took me 8 years of nagging, but finally gave in and went, okay, fine, have a radio show, do it, and just do a good job, please. So yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled, because MD was where I always felt most where I belonged, and I felt like where I fitted. And it's and I think it's nice that you've got that support, not just globally, but you've got it over this side of the world as well. And you know we'll do a good job and represent MD well. So I hope you know that anyway.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. All right, well, that has been our big recap of 2018. We're looking forward to killing it in 2019. It's going to be a big year for everybody. It's going to be very exciting. So please stay here at musculardevelopment.com and follow along as we continue our journey in this crazy sport of ours. Thanks for watching, everybody.